quick book recap. Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a book that feels, well, ancient, but holds wisdom about money that's as fresh as today's headlines. We're exploring The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason.
That's right. Our sources for this deep dive are, the stories and excerpts taken directly from this classic book. And it's not some dry financial guide. It's really a collection of parables set thousands of years ago.
And our mission, basically to extract the absolute core principles, those timeless, simple rules for how you acquire money, how you keep it safe, and maybe most importantly, how you make it work for you so it grows. We want to translate this ancient wisdom into clear, applicable insights for your life today.
Think of it like discovering the fundamental laws of prosperity, kind of hidden in plain sight within these really captivating Babylonian tales. We're going to explore why Babylon, of all places, became just so incredibly wealthy, and how the practices of its richest citizens can still guide us.
So let's set the scene then. Why Babylon? When we picture ancient civilizations, Babylon might come to mind for, I don't know, its architecture or maybe its fame, but the book makes a very specific point about its reputation. It was known as the wealthiest city in the world.
And this is fascinating because, as the book explains, this wasn't because of some natural gift like, gold mines or lush forests. The source really emphasizes that Babylon's incredible riches were entirely the result of the wisdom and the hard work of its people. They built their wealth deliberately.
Exactly. The historical sketch in the book highlights that Babylon's natural resources were actually pretty limited, really only fertile soil and the water from the Great Euphrates River. That was their starting point.
Mm-hmm. But the Babylonians were incredible engineers. The book details how they constructed these vast irrigation canals, diverting the river's water across the valley to make the land productive. It even gives you a sense of scale by comparing them to modern canals in places like Colorado and Utah. These were huge projects for their time. Yeah. And they also built complex drainage systems to turn swamps into usable land. They literally engineered their own prosperity out of, well, mud and water.
They took what nature gave them, which wasn't much apparently, and through ingenuity and immense effort, just transformed it into this thriving civilization.
Absolutely. And this wasn't just about farming. The book points out that the Babylonians were pioneers. They're credited as being among the first known engineers, astronomers, mathematicians, and critically for our topic, the first financiers.
Financiers back then.
Yeah, they developed essential tools of commerce that we still use today. Things like inventing money as a standardized medium of exchange, promissory notes like early IOUs, and written titles of property, all recorded on these durable clay tablets.
Clay tablets holding property deeds and loan agreements. It gives you a real sense of how foundational their financial systems actually were.
And that's the key takeaway the book wants us to get from this history. The core idea is that the fundamental laws governing money and wealth, they're universal and unchanging. Just like gravity worked the same way back then as it does now, the principles of building and keeping wealth operate under constant, reliable laws.
So the wisdom from Babylon, it still works today if you actually apply it.
That's the argument. The city's wealth wasn't magic. It was built on practical principles and, yes, hard work. But let's zoom in on the personal side a bit. The book opens with this scene featuring two friends, Banzir the chariot maker and Colby the musician.
Right, I remember them.
They work hard, they're skilled at their craft, but they share a common problem. Their purses are lean. Despite all their labor, they just have no money left over.
They're frustrated.
Totally. They're sitting there looking out at this wealthy city they helped build, and they ask each other, why is Arkad the richest man in Babylon? They point out, they started out just like him, trained under the same masters, worked just as hard for years. So why is Arkad overflowing with gold while they have almost nothing?
It's a classic question, isn't it? Why are some people wealthy when others who seem to work just as hard aren't? It feels unfair sometimes.
It does. And Arkad's response when they ask him cuts right to the chase. He tells them it's not about random chance or some mysterious luck. It's because they failed to learn or observe the laws that govern building wealth. They were working in the system, sure, but they weren't playing by its fundamental rules.
Okay, so there are actual rules to this game.
That's what Arkad argues. He then shares his own story, emphasizing he didn't start rich either. Arkad began with nothing but a strong desire for wealth. He found work as a scribe, diligently carving those clay tablets. He worked long hours, day in and day out, just like Banzir and Kabi. But also, just like them, he had nothing to show for it at the end of the day. As he describes it, his earnings were completely absorbed by everyday expenses, buying food, clothing, other necessities. The money came in and poof, it went straight back out.
Yeah, that feels incredibly familiar. I think a lot of people feel that way today. You get paid, you cover your bills, buy groceries, maybe something small you wanted, and bam, the money is just gone. Where does it even go? It feels like you're stuck on a treadmill.
That's exactly the cycle Arcad was in. His determination to become wealthy was strong, but he lacked the fundamental understanding of how to make his labor translate into lasting wealth. And that's what led him to Algamish, the rich moneylender, and his first great lesson.
Okay, this is where the core wisdom really starts to kick in, right? Arkad is working as a scribe, and Algamish needs this massive amount of text copied really quickly.
Right. And Arcad, spotting a unique chance, makes a bargain. He'll work tirelessly all night to finish the task if Algamish will share his secret to wealth.
Bold move.
It was. And Algamish agrees. And the first foundational insight he gives Arcad, and the first core rule of building wealth from a lean purse, is incredibly simple, yet, well, often overlooked. A part of all you earn is yours to keep.
My first reaction, honestly, like Arkad's, is always, but isn't all I earn already mine to keep? If I make $10, it's my $10.
And that's the point Algamish clarifies. He asks Arcad, do you not pay the garment maker? Do you not pay the sandal maker? Do you not pay for the food you eat? And Arcad's like, well, yeah, of course. Algamish continues, then thou payest all men but thyself. You work hard to earn money, and then you immediately turn around and pay everyone else for their goods and services. You labor for others, and then you give the proceeds of your labor away to them. You aren't setting aside anything for the person who did all the work, which is you.
Ooh, okay. Okay, I see the distinction now. It's not just about the money coming in. It's about strategically deciding where a portion must go first, for yourself.
Precisely. Algamish then gives Arcad a challenge. If you kept just 1/10 of everything you earned, saving it before paying anyone else, how much would you have in 10 years? It forces you to think about the accumulation power, of consistently setting aside a portion of your income for yourself.
So Arkad actually tries this.
He commits to it. He starts setting aside 1 out of every 10 copper coins he earns. And he says, almost surprisingly, that he found he could manage just fine on the remaining 9/10. He wasn't any poorer or more deprived than before. And he describes this powerful feeling. It felt incredibly good as his purse began to grow heavier with his own saved coins.
I can imagine that feeling.
Yeah. And the book uses this wonderful analogy to illustrate the power of this simple act. It talks about an egg merchant with the basket. Every morning they put 10 eggs into the basket. That's their earnings. But critically, every evening they only take 9 eggs out. That's their spending. What happens eventually?
The basket gets full and then overflows.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you're consistently putting more in than you're taking out. And applying this to your money, if you consistently keep just a part, like that 1/10 of everything you earn before spending the rest, your basket of savings, your wealth, will inevitably start to accumulate and grow. It might seem small at first, but the consistency is the powerful force.
That makes so much sense. It's not about hitting some jackpot. It's about building a steady habit of putting something away for yourself first. Okay, so Arkad learns this first crucial lesson. Then the story shifts to a scene involving King Sargon.
Yes. King Sargon returns to Babylon after a military victory, expecting to find his city thriving. Instead, the royal chancellor reports a problem. While the king spent tons of gold on magnificent public works like canals and temples, that gold has flowed into the hands of just a few wealthy men.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. Now that the projects are done, the common laborers are unemployed, merchants have no customers, farmers can't sell their goods. The majority of the people have no gold left.
The king is astonished, right? Asks, where did all the gold go?
And the chancellor has this famous reply, something like, it filtered through the fingers of most of our people as quickly as the goat's milk goes through the strainer. The rich have the gold, he says, because they know how to acquire it and keep it.
Ah, they have the know-how.
Exactly. So King Sargon, realizing that the city's strength depends on the wealth of all its people, not just a few, decides everyone needs to learn this knowledge. He tells the chancellor to find the richest man in Babylon, Arcad, of course, and have him teach the people. Arcad agrees and offers to share the wisdom he acquired, presenting it as the 7 cures for a lean purse.
These 7 cures, they're like the practical steps based on those fundamental laws, right?
Exactly. Arcad gathers a class of 100 men, deliberately choosing people from all walks of life, scribes, butchers, bakers, even the egg merchant we mentioned, to show that these principles are universal. They apply to anyone who earns an income, no matter their job.
And the very first cure he teaches them is, let me guess, the same lesson he learned from Algamish.
You got it. He presents it as the absolute foundation. Cure 1. Start thy purse to fattening. This cure explicitly lays out the rule. Save not less than 1/10 of everything you earn. Simple as that.
Back to the 10.
Back to the 10th. He reinforces it with the egg merchant analogy, again putting in 10 eggs, taking out only 9 to show how consistent saving just inevitably leads to accumulation. He really emphasizes that the simple act of watching your savings grow, feeling that increase in weight in your purse, brings this deep satisfaction and motivation.
Okay, first step, non-negotiable. Save 1/10 first. Got it. But just saving isn't enough if you spend wildly on everything else, right? That brings us to the next cure.
Precisely. The second cure addresses how you handle the money after you've set aside your 10th. Cure 2, control the expenditures. Arcad introduces the concept of creating a budget, basically, a plan for your spending.
Ah, the B word. Budgeting. Now, this is where one of the students immediately pushes back, doesn't he? Complaining that budgeting sounds like slavery, that it would take away all enjoyment from life and make him a miserable pack-ass, only worried about basics.
And that's such a relatable feeling. The idea of restricting yourself can sound, well, awful. But Arcad brilliantly reframes it. He asks the student, "Who, my friend, would determine thy budget?" The student replies, "Well, I would make it for myself."
Right.
Arcad then points out that a pack-ass doesn't choose its budget. It's only given enough for necessities like hay and water. You, however, get to decide your budget based on your priorities and desires.
So it's not about deprivation, it's about making conscious choices about where your money actually goes.
Exactly. The purpose of a budget, according to Arcad, is twofold. First, yes, it helps ensure your purse keeps fattening by living on the remaining 9/10. But equally important, it helps you have money for your necessities, your enjoyments, and your worthwhile desires. It forces you to differentiate between just casual whims and things you truly cherish.
Okay, so you decide what's important.
Right. Helping you allocate your money towards what genuinely brings you value and satisfaction, rather than letting it just drain away on things you barely remember buying later. You defend your cherished desires from just casual wishes.
The analogy he uses is great too. The budget is like a bright light in a dark cave, showing you exactly where your money is going so you can see the leaks and, stop them.
It makes visible what's usually invisible impulse spending. The aim is to live comfortably and meaningfully, but always within 9/10 of your income, because that foundational 1/10 is non-negotiable for your future wealth.
Save a 10th. Live on 9/10 by making a conscious spending plan. Okay, so you're accumulating money. What do you do with it? Just pile it up under the mattress, basically. That leads to the next cure, I bet.
That's cure 3. Make thy gold multiply. Arcad explains that simply hoarding gold in a chest, while maybe satisfying for a miser, doesn't do anything for you financially in the long run. Your saved treasure needs to be put to work. It needs to be sent out like a laborer to earn more money for you.
And this is where he brings back the story of Algamish visiting him again, right after he started saving.
Yes. A year after their first meeting, Algamish checks in. Arcad is proud, says, "Yep, I saved the 10th. But then he reveals his first attempt at making it multiply. He gave his savings to Asmor, a brickmaker.
Oh, I remember this part.
Yeah, Asmor promised to travel to Tyre and buy rare jewels they could sell for a huge profit.
Ah, the classic first investment mistake story. That sounds exciting on the surface, though. Investing, getting rich quick.
Algamish's reaction is priceless. The book says he growled, totally disappointed, said, "Every fool must learn." He asks Arcad why he would trust a brickmaker, someone whose expertise is in building, to know anything about rare jewels. Like, would you ask a bread maker for advice on the stars?
Good point. No.
You go to the expert in the specific field you're interested in. So Arcad lost his savings in this venture, and Algamish tells him he basically jerked your wealth tree up by the roots before it even had a chance to grow.
Ouch. Painful but a critical lesson. Seek expert advice. But Arcad didn't give up, did he?
Nope. He took Algamish's harsh advice, went back to being a diligent scribe, and started saving his 10th again. Another year passes, Algamish visits a third time. This time, Arcad tells him he saved again and gave his gold to Agar, the shield maker, to buy bronze. And now he's receiving a rental payment, actual income, every 4th month.
Okay, actual money coming back. That's progress. So he's getting this regular income from his investment. What did he do with that money? Did he finally have that feast? Buy that fancy tunic? Maybe plan to buy an ass, like you joked about earlier.
Algamish sees this and laughs, but kindly this time. He tells Arkad, "You do eat the children of your savings."
Eat the children, what does that mean?
The rental payments of the children? The income produced by his invested money, his savings. If Arkad immediately spends that income, his original investment can't grow larger, and those children can't have children of their own, meaning more earnings.
Ah, compounding.
Exactly. The lesson is profound. You must first build an army of golden slaves, that's your invested money earning money, and let that army grow by reinvesting its earnings. Only then, once your well is generating significant income on its own, can you truly enjoy those banquets without regret, without depleting your principal. The book gives an example of an investment multiplying 17 times over 50 years, showing the power of reinvesting earnings long term.
So invest wisely, let the investment earn, and then reinvest those earnings to grow your army faster. Don't just spend the first bit of profit. That leads logically to the fourth cure, which must be about not losing your money in the first place.
Precisely. Cure 4. Guard thy treasures from loss. Arkad points out that misfortune seems attracted to wealth. Gold in a purse is a tempting target, right? You need to guard your money carefully. He advises starting with small amounts to practice and learn how to protect them before you risk larger sums.
Like his first disastrous investment with Asmer the brickmaker, he lost his treasure because I didn't protect it with knowledge or by seeking wise counsel, if that makes sense.
Exactly. The absolute key piece of advice here, and it's repeated throughout the book, is to consult with wise men, people who are experienced and knowledgeable in handling gold and investments. Let their experience and wisdom be like a shield for your wealth.
Okay.
The primary goal of any investment or place you put your money should be that your principal, the original amount you invested, is safe and protected. It should be reclaimable if you need it, and it should provide a fair, reasonable return or rental. The book strongly advises against chasing unrealistically high returns or taking on high risk, especially when you're starting out. Small and safe is infinitely better than risking everything for a chance at massive gains.
It's better to get a little bit of growth safely than risk losing everything trying to get rich quick. That
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. Okay, Cure 5 is a bit different and talks about your home, your dwelling.
Cure 5. Make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. Arkad poses a question. If you're diligently living on 9/10 of your income, is there a way to turn a significant part of that spending into an investment? He observes that many people spend a large portion of their income paying rent for unseemly quarters, meaning poor living spaces that don't even have room for gardens or for children to play.
That's definitely still a huge challenge for many people today. Rent feels like such a bottomless expense sometimes.
It does, and the book's perspective is that owning your own dwelling can be a highly profitable investment. It provides you and your family with a home, fulfilling a basic need, and the land and property often increase in value over time. So instead of that money just disappearing as rent each month, it's building equity and potentially appreciating as an asset.
So you're not just paying for shelter, you're potentially building wealth at the same time. That's a different way to look at it.
Exactly. The book also mentions the pride of ownership, suggesting it makes people feel more invested in their homes and communities, which apparently strengthens their efforts in other areas of life as well. It's about turning a major expense category into an asset that grows.
That's a great angle on homeownership. Okay, what about planning for the future? Like when you're older or if something happens?
That's Cure 6. Ensure a future income. This cure is all about ensuring you have financial security for your later years when you might not be able to work, and also providing for your family if something happens to you prematurely. The book talks about making small, consistent payments over time into a plan designed for this purpose.
Like insurance or retirement savings.
Pretty much. Arkad describes a concept very similar to modern insurance or pension plans, where many people contribute small amounts regularly, and if one family faces a tragedy or reaches old age without means, they receive a substantial sum. It's pooling risk and saving for the long term.
It really does sound like the ancient form of insurance or building a retirement fund.
It does. The book uses a powerful comparison, likening this kind of long-term financial planning and protection to the legendary walls of Babylon, which protected the whole city from invaders. You are building your own impregnable walls of insurance, savings accounts, and dependable investments to protect yourself and your family against the uncertainties of the future.
Wow, strong image.
And this cure also includes practical advice, like paying your debts promptly, taking good care of your family, and making a will, seeing these actions as expressions of self-respect and responsibility towards others.
Those are incredibly solid long-term financial and life practices. Okay, finally, the last cure, number 7.
Cure 7. Increase thy ability to earn. This one is maybe the most proactive. It's about continuously improving yourself, acquiring new skills, training diligently, and seeking out knowledge about things you don't currently understand. The core idea is simple. The more valuable your skills and knowledge are, the more you can potentially earn.
So it's basically about investing in yourself, learning more to earn more.
Precisely. Arcad describes learning as having two parts, what you already know and learning how to find out what you don't know. By increasing your ability to earn, you increase your potential income. And with a higher income, assuming you're applying the other cures, right, you have more to save, more to invest, and more to accelerate your whole wealth building journey.
Makes sense.
The book emphasizes that the desire to prosper is the essential starting point, but it's the knowledge and consistent practice that actually make it happen.
Wow. So these 7 cures really lay out a complete step-by-step plan. Save a tenth, control spending with a budget, make your savings work for you through wise investment, protect those investments from loss, maybe turn your home into an asset, plan for the future, and keep boosting your earning power.
That's the powerful framework Arcad teaches. It's a logical progression, starting with that fundamental step of paying yourself first, which creates the capital you need for all the other steps. It definitely requires discipline and what Arcad calls unflinching purpose, meaning you have to stick to it. But the steps themselves are actually pretty straightforward.
And it all hinges on consistently applying these simple actions, starting with, like, the very next dollar or coin you earn.
Right. It's about changing your habits from letting money just filter through your fingers to deliberately directing it towards building your own security and future wealth.
Okay, but the book also talks about luck, right? Is wealth sometimes just about being lucky? That feels very different from these structured, disciplined steps.
Yeah, that question comes up during a discussion at the Temple of Learning. People are pondering whether wealth is just random chance. Someone found a lost purse of gold and wants to know how to make sure good luck stays with them.
I mean, finding gold or winning the lottery definitely feels like random luck, doesn't it?
It does, but the book challenges that perspective pretty hard. It uses the example of gaming tables, pointing out that the odds are inherently stacked against the player. The game master structures the games, so they expect to keep a significant portion. The book mentions 1/5 of all wagers, because the math is in their favor. That's not a reliable path to wealth.
So you can't just hope the goddess of good luck smiles on you at the dice table or, betting on the chariot races.
Not for building lasting wealth, according to these stories. The discussion moves to the idea of opportunities we almost enjoyed, those chances for profit or gain that were presented but weren't taken. The book tells these stories to illustrate this, like the merchant who had a chance to buy a whole flock of sheep really cheaply from a farmer needing to sell quickly outside the city gates.
Okay, so he had the opportunity right there.
Yeah,
What went wrong?
he hesitated. The merchant wanted to count the sheep perfectly, arrange payment in the morning. There's a similar story about a camel buyer who had the same chance, both delayed. By the next morning, conditions changed drastically, like a threat of siege made food suddenly scarce and other buyers snapped up the sheep for dramatically higher prices. The opportunity just vanished because they didn't act fast enough.
Oh no. They had the chance right there, but their hesitation, their procrastination, cost them dearly.
Exactly. A wise character called the Syrian points out this fundamental truth. Opportunity flees procrastination. He says that hesitating, failing to tell yourself, right now is the best time, I will do it quick, is what makes you your own worst enemy. The opportunity was there, but their delay meant they weren't the ones who benefited.
So according to the book, good luck isn't just random chance landing on you. It's tied to being prepared and actually taking action when a favorable chance appears.
That's the clear conclusion. Arcad states that men of action are favored by the goddess of good luck. It's not that opportunity only knocks for a select few. It's that those who have prepared themselves through knowledge, saving, diligence, and are willing to act decisively when opportunity shows up are the ones in a position to actually benefit from it. Like that merchant, the real challenge was conquering his own internal procrastination. Taking action leads to success.
That's a really empowering idea, actually, because it puts the outcome back on your choices and actions rather than just hoping for some lucky break.
And it links directly back to Cure 7. Yeah.
Hmm.
Increasing your ability to earn, being prepared, being knowledgeable so you can recognize and seize those moments.
Now let's talk about the 5 laws of gold. These seem like a really important, concise summary of all this core wisdom.
They are. They're presented later in the book through the story of Calibob the camel trader, sharing ancient wisdom with his companions out in the desert. He says these laws were told to him by Nomasir, who was Arkad's son, and he emphasizes that wisdom is far more valuable than gold itself. You can lose gold, but wisdom, once you gain it, is a treasure that can help you acquire gold again and, crucially, keep it.
So Nomasir's own story is an illustration of learning these laws the hard way. Like father, like son, maybe.
Precisely. Arkad, wanting his son to prove himself and build his own fortune and reputation, gives Nomasir a substantial bag of gold and a clay tablet inscribed with the 5 laws. He tells his son basically, go out into the world for 10 years, use this gold and this wisdom, and come back having acquired your own wealth and earned respect.
Big challenge. How did Nomasir do initially? Did he follow the rules?
Nomasir admits to a disastrous handling of the gold at first. He made several really serious errors that directly violated the laws his father gave him, though he didn't really understand them yet. He lost a significant chunk in a horse race, only to discover later it was totally rigged.
Ouch.
Yeah. And he also entered a business partnership with someone he didn't know well, in a business he had absolutely no experience in, another very costly mistake.
These sound exactly like breaking the rules we just talked about. Guarding your treasure, avoiding unrealistic promises, not seeking wise advice.
They were textbook examples. He invested based on wishful thinking, got caught up in deception, and relied on his own inexperience. He hit absolute rock bottom, lost all the gold, and actually ended up as a slave building the city walls. Just like those laborers in the story about hard work we'll get to later.
Wow, that's a hard fall. From privileged son to slave laborer, how did he possibly turn things around from that point?
He started applying the first law again, even in his terrible circumstances. From his meager earnings as a slave, he began diligently saving just a copper coin whenever he could. It was incredibly slow, but he committed to it, recognizing it as profiting from my knowledge of the first law, which was basically the only thing he had left.
The first law. Save 1/10 of what you earn. He applied it even when he had next to nothing. That's powerful.
Yes. It really demonstrates that the principle works no matter how small the amount is. Then, opportunity arose again. The slave master he worked for developed a plan to pool money with others to buy metal for the city gates, expecting a profitable payment from the king.
Okay.
Nomasir, using his small accumulated savings, invested in this venture. But this time, crucially, he did so under the guidance of wise men who were experienced in these large-scale deals and had a reputation for success.
So he learned from his past mistake of trusting the inexperienced and, well, the schemers.
Exactly. This venture succeeded, and Nomasir continued to partner with these experienced, cautious men on other ventures. He observed how they carefully reviewed every plan, always prioritized the safety of their principal, and avoided ventures where the money would be tied up unprofitably or risk unnecessary loss. They basically embodied the wisdom he had previously ignored.
That seeking out expert guidance, it just keeps coming up as absolutely critical, doesn't it? So after 10 years, Nomasir goes back to his father.
He does. He returns the original bag of gold his father gave him, proving he hadn't lost it forever. But then he presents Arkad with 2 additional bags of gold.
2 more? Where did they come from?
He explains they are for the wisdom tablet his father gave him. He tells Arkad he learned that the wisdom itself was exponentially more valuable than the initial gold, because it was that wisdom that enabled him to recover from total disaster and then build real wealth.
Because the wisdom taught him how to get the gold back and make it grow. It wasn't just about having the gold to start with.
Precisely. He emphasizes that wealth that lasts doesn't come overnight. It accumulates gradually, built upon knowledge, discipline, and persistent purpose. Observing these 5 laws might feel like a slight burden, he says, but it's the only reliable path to enduring wealth.
And those 5 powerful laws, they really summarize the core principles, right? Can we list them out?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Law 1. Gold comes gladly and in increasing quantity to any man who will put by not less than 1/10 of his earnings to create an estate for his future and that of his family.
Okay, that's cure 1 again. Save 1/10, and that saved 1/10 will start attracting more.
Right. Law 2. Gold labors diligently and contentedly for the wise owner who findeth for it profitable employment, multiplying even as the flocks of the field.
That's cure 3, make your money make money, like those golden slaves working for you.
Exactly. Law 3. Gold clingeth to the protection of the cautious owner who investeth it under the advice of men wise in its handling.
Cure 4, always seek experienced advice to protect your investments. Don't trust the brickmaker with your jewels.
Perfect example. Law 4. Gold slippeth away from the man who investeth it in businesses where he is not familiar, or which are not approved by those skilled in its keep.
That's what Nomasir did wrong with that partnership. Avoid investing in things you don't understand or without getting the okay from people who actually do understand it.
Spot on. And Law 5. Gold fleeth the man who would force it to impossible earnings, or who follow with the alluring advice of tricksters and schemers, or who doth trust his own inexperience and romantic desires in its investment.
So beware of get-rich-quick schemes, tricksters, and don't just follow your own uninformed hopes when investing. That covers Nomasir's horse race and other early mistakes.
It does. Those 5 laws really distill the investment and wealth protection principles from the 7 cures into a concise, memorable code. They add that crucial layer of caution and emphasize that building lasting wealth is about knowledge, patience, and avoiding those pitfalls guided by inexperience or, frankly, greed.
Okay, that's powerful stuff. What about debt? The book tackles getting out of debt too, which is, a massive challenge for so many people today.
Oh, absolutely. It dedicates a significant section to it through the story of Tarkad, a man tormented by hunger and overwhelming debt, and his conversation with Davasir, the camel trader, who Tarkad actually owes money to. Davasir shares his own really powerful story of falling into and climbing out of deep debt.
How did Devasir, this successful camel trader, end up in debt and even slavery himself?
He describes starting out well as a saddle maker, got married, but gradually fell into the habit of spending more than he earned. He calls it sowing the winds of needless self-indulgence, which inevitably led him to reaping whirlwinds of trouble and humiliation.
Oof. Been there, done that. Maybe not the whirlwind part.
Right. He accumulated debts with shopkeepers, with friends. Things spiraled so badly that he felt he had to flee Babylon. Out of desperation, he became a robber, was captured, and ultimately sold into slavery in Syria.
Wow. That seems to be a recurring theme, uncontrolled finances leading to really dire consequences, even slavery back then.
It really drives home the severe impact of financial mismanagement. But Dabasir's turning point came while he was a slave. He realized his debts weren't just financial burdens. They were like enemies he'd allowed to become powerful but just ignoring them. He decided that he had the soul of a free man and that he had to actively fight these enemies, his debts, to reclaim his freedom and his self-respect.
So just like Arkad and Nomasir, he needed a plan, right? He couldn't just wish it away.
Exactly. He sought advice from Melthon, the gold lender, same guy Rodan goes to later. Together, they devised a simple, actionable plan, which Dabasir recorded on clay tablets, the famous clay tablets from Babylon.
Okay, what was this plan for getting out of debt? I'm curious.
Dabasir's plan had 3 clear purposes for dividing his income, even the meager amount he earned once he was able to work for wages again. Purpose 1 was to provide for future prosperity. This meant setting aside 1/10 of every coin he earned to keep for himself as his savings.
Whoa, hold on. Even when he was deep in debt, drowning in it, the first step was still to save a 10th. That seems completely backwards to what most people would think.
It's totally counterintuitive, I know, but it's foundational to the book's whole philosophy. It ensures you immediately start rebuilding your own financial foundation, creating a future for yourself, even while you're dealing with the past. Purpose 2 was to provide for his family's living expenses. He and his wife agreed they would live strictly on 7/10 of his income.
Okay, save 110th, live on 7/10. That leaves 210 cents. So that must be for the debts.
That remaining portion was Purpose 3, to pay his debts. He committed to dividing that remaining 2/10 fairly among all his creditors each month. No more, no less, just consistently chipping away.
So a fixed, consistent portion of his income was dedicated solely to attacking his debts. Like a system.
Exactly. He describes how difficult it was presenting this plan to his creditors. Some were angry, some pleaded for more, others, like Alcahad the house owner, were just disagreeable and skeptical. But most eventually accepted his honest proposal to pay a consistent portion over time. And Dabasir found that having this plan and sticking to it, even when it was hard, was infinitely easier than living in fear and trying to avoid everyone he owed money to.
And the plan actually worked. He got out.
The entries on his clay tablets showed his progress. Month by month, his total indebtedness decreased, his personal savings slowly but surely grew, and he describes this powerful internal transformation. His heart felt lighter, his head stood straighter, he was proud to walk among his friends again. Even the grumpy Alcahad eventually acknowledged the change in him, saying, Dabasir, who was once a piece of soft clay, is now bronze, like a strong, reliable person.
That image of becoming bronze is so powerful. It shows the plan wasn't just about the money. It was about restoring his character and his self-respect through discipline.
It absolutely was. And critically, the book includes this reference to a modern letter from a real person, an archaeology professor named Alfred Shrewsbury, who apparently wrote to the publisher. He had found himself deep in debt, facing what he called hell on earth, and decided to try Debussier's ancient plan. He interpreted it as save 10%, live on 70%, and pay 20% to debts.
Did it work for him too?
He reported that it worked. He and his wife diligently lived on 70% of their income, dedicated 20% to debt repayment, and saved the remaining 10%. They successfully got out of debt and dramatically improved their lives.
Wow. So even if you feel totally overwhelmed by debt today, this plan from thousands of years ago, save first, live frugally, dedicate a fixed portion to debt, it can still actually work.
That's precisely the message the book and that modern anecdote convey. It's about having a clear, consistent plan, applying discipline, and crucially starting to build your own foundation, even while you're chipping away at what you owe others. It just demonstrates the enduring power of these basic principles.
That's incredibly practical and honestly hopeful advice for anyone struggling with debt. Okay, let's flip the coin now. Borrowing and lending. What wisdom does the book offer there?
This comes through the story of Rodin, the spearmaker. He gets this unexpected windfall, 50 pieces of gold from the king, as a reward. Having never had such a sum, he's totally unsure what to do with it. Wisely, he seeks counsel from Mathon the gold lender, the expert in handling money.
Good move. Go to someone who actually knows what they're doing.
Yes. And Mathon explains his philosophy using this box of tokens, each representing a loan he's made, and the outcome lessons learned over a whole lifetime of lending. He explains which types of loans are safest and which are the most likely to result in loss.
Okay, so what makes a loan safe in Mathon's eyes?
Mathon says the safest loans are those made to individuals whose possessions like land, jewels, or a flock of camels are worth more than the amount being borrowed. These loans are based on tangible assets that can be used as security, as collateral. If the borrower can't repay the gold, the lender can claim the valuable possession instead. The loan is secured by property, not just a promise.
Right, so the borrower has something substantial to back up their ability to repay. Makes sense. What about the risky loans? What should you watch out for?
He describes risky loans as those made to people who are in the grip of strong emotions or passions. He tells a story about a man borrowing lavishly just to impress a beautiful wife, or loans taken out for, indiscretions or foolishness. He particularly warns against lending based on inexperience or unrealistic hopes. He tells the story of an old woman's son who wanted to be a merchant but lacked the knowledge, and a youth whose enterprises collapsed because his knowledge of business was just immature.
So you can't just lend money to someone because they have a big dream or really, really want to do something amazing. Enthusiasm isn't enough.
Mathon's point is, if someone, like Rodin's brother-in-law, who wants a loan to become a merchant, asks for gold for a business idea, the first questions you ask should be about their knowledge and their experience in that specific business. If they like it, the purpose for the loan isn't wise, and the risk of them failing and you losing your money is very, very high.
It sounds like lending gold was treated as a serious profession back then, not just like doing a favor for someone you know.
Absolutely. Mathon states it's easy to lend gold, but extremely difficult to get it back if you've lent it unwisely. The goal of the lender is the safe return of their principal plus a fair rental or interest, not to become a co-participant in the borrower's potentially risky or ill-conceived venture.
Okay. So what was Mathon's advice to Robin with his 50 gold pieces?
His advice was cautious and clear. First, keep your 50 pieces of gold. It's yours to keep and grow using the other principles. If you choose to lend it, do so with great caution. Maybe divide it up, lend small amounts to many different proven ventures or individuals. Seek out established success and be conservative about the expected earnings. Don't get swept up in promises of huge returns or lend to inexperienced dreamers. His final powerful advice was, better a little caution than a great regret.
That's solid wisdom, not just for lending your money out, but even for choosing where you invest your own savings, isn't it? It's about doing your homework, understanding the risk, and checking the capability of whoever's using the money.
It ties right back into Cure 4, guarding your treasure and ensuring your principal is safe by seeking out knowledgeable guidance and not taking foolish risks.
Okay, the final major principle the book really emphasizes is the importance of hard work, which maybe sounds obvious, but they frame it in an interesting way.
They do. This comes through the story of Sharunada, a wealthy merchant prince, who was troubled by the attitude of his grandson, Hadan Gula. The grandson is a spendthrift and believes work is something only fit for slaves. To teach his grandson a lesson, Sharunada shares his own history, revealing that he himself actually started life as a slave.
Wow. He actually came from that background, the rich merchant prince.
Yes, He recounts seeing other slaves toiling in a field and being taught this powerful philosophy by an older slave named Megiddo, who declared, "Work is a man's best friend." Megiddo explained how his own diligent work and willingness to take initiative helped him impress buyers and ultimately gain a kind and good master.
That's a really profound way to think about work, not as just a punishment or a burden, but as something that can actively help you and open doors. Your best friend.
It totally reframes it, doesn't it? Sharonada embraced this idea and decided that work would be his best friend. He worked incredibly hard selling honey cakes for his master, Nananade, and applying the first law, he diligently saved every single penny he earned from his sales, keeping them securely in his wallet of pennies hanging safely from my belt.
So his hard work wasn't just labor, it was productive. It led to earnings he could then save. He was applying the principles even then.
Exactly. And his dedication and enterprise were noticed. He impressed Arad Gula, who happened to be Hadan Gula's other grandfather. Arad Gula was also a slave, but a remarkable one who had entered into a profitable partnership with his master. Arad Gula was inspired by Sharonada's work ethic and his forward-thinking approach, calling it his philosophy and thy enterprise.
So his work ethic got him noticed by someone influential.
Yes, and this recognition led Arad Gula to choose Sharonada as his partner. Their joint ventures were very successful, and through this partnership, Sharonada was eventually able to gain his freedom. Arad Gula bought him, which was a path to freedom for some slaves then.
So his hard work directly led to recognition, partnership, the opportunity for freedom, and ultimately, his wealth. It wasn't just drudgery.
It shows that diligence, energy, and a proactive approach to work attract opportunity and favorable relationships. Hadan Gula, hearing his grandfather's amazing story, begins to understand that work wasn't just for slaves. It was the very force that had attracted friends, led to success, and earned his grandfather honors and wealth.
And the book makes sure to connect this personal lesson back to the bigger picture of Babylon itself, right?
Yes, it reiterates that the city of Babylon, despite its fame for wealth, was not naturally endowed. It was built entirely by human effort, the ability and energy of its people. It was man-developed and man-made. This just highlights that hard work and enterprise are fundamental building blocks of wealth and create the opportunities that don't just magically appear out of thin air.
Okay, bringing it all together then, it's clear the book isn't presenting some hidden, complex secrets to getting rich. It's really a set of very practical, almost common-sense rules rooted in discipline and consistency.
Exactly. It boils down the core wisdom into those powerful, simple truths we've seen in Arkad's 7 Cures and the 5 Laws of Gold.
Let's just quickly recap those core actions one more time for everyone listening. First, pay yourself first. Save at least 1/10 of everything you earn.
Then, control your spending. Create a budget and live comfortably, but definitely live within the remaining 9/10.
Make your saved money work for you. Invest it wisely so it earns more money. Compound it.
Guard your money from loss. Be cautious. Do your homework. And crucially, seek advice from experienced, wise people before you invest.
Turn your dwelling into a profitable investment if you can, maybe by owning your home.
Plan for your future financial security. Consistently save and invest over the long term. Think about insurance and retirement.
And continuously increase your ability to earn. Keep learning, keep improving your skills.
Right. Plus, if you're in debt, tackle it strategically, using a structured plan like Davisier's Save First, Live Frugally, Pay Consistently, Be Cautious and Informed whenever you lend or borrow money, and fundamentally embrace hard work and be a person of action. Because opportunity really does favor those who are prepared and willing to actually seize it.
They're simple rules, maybe, but it's the consistency and the discipline in applying them day after day, year after year, that builds the wealth. That unflinching purpose Arkad talks about. It's not easy, even if it's simple.
It's about building wealth brick by brick, coin by coin, powered by knowledge and consistent effort, not by hoping for random luck or some secret formula nobody else knows.
And as Nomasir learned the hard way, having the knowledge and the wisdom to manage and grow wealth is the real treasure, isn't it? It's more valuable than any amount of gold you might just be given initially.
It's the sustainable source of prosperity. The gold can disappear, but the wisdom lets you rebuild.
It really is remarkable that these straightforward ideas, articulated in these stories, from a city that literally turned dust and water into immense wealth thousands of years ago, are still the bedrock of sound financial practice today. It makes you consider how fundamental these human behaviors and principles really are to building prosperity.
It does. They've endured precisely because they work. They address the core challenges we all face with managing our money and turning our labor into lasting security.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Considering that the wisdom from Babylon has endured for thousands of years, outlasting the physical city itself, which is now just ruins, what does that tell us about the real source of lasting wealth and security? Not just for us as individuals, but maybe for our families and even for our communities.
Hmm. It powerfully suggests that true, enduring wealth and prosperity aren't really found in physical riches alone, are they? They seem to be built upon the intangible foundations of knowledge, wise habits, disciplined action, and maybe integrity, the timeless principles that empower individuals and societies to create value that persists across generations long after the gold itself might be gone.